Exam 1 review, Spring 23, question number 9. Use the calculator to evaluate inverse cosine of 0.36, and we need to round to 3 decimals. The answer should be in radians. So you're just going to plug this into your calculator. Make sure you are in radians mode first. So you go to mode, and then you're going to go with the arrow down and then select radians, click enter, and then clear the screen. And then you're going to say second cosine, which is going to pop up the inverse cosine, and then 0.36, and close parentheses. You get an answer. You're going to round to 3 decimals just like it says here. So it's going to be 1.203. So the answer to inverse cosine of 0.36 is equal to 1.203 radians, of course. Okay. Question number 10, you need to make sure your calculator is in degree mode before you proceed for this question. We need to find all of the unknowns, the angle x and angle y, and we need to find the side z, which is the hypotenuse. First, we can find side z. We can say z squared is equal to 14 squared plus 11 squared. So for this question, you will need to use a calculator. You cannot do it without a calculator. So now z squared is equal to 14 squared, which is 196, plus 11 squared, 121. When you add them together, you get 317. So z squared is equal to 317. Z is equal to the positive square root of 317. I can just leave it like that, and I can say this is square root of 317. You don't need to round your answers to decimals. You don't need to plug it into the calculator to get decimals, but you definitely can do that, and you get 17.8, approximately 17.8. Now we're going to find all of the sides, so let's find side x. Now, let's find the angle x. So angle x is basically, now we have the adjacent and we have the opposite to that. So we can say that tangent x is equal to the opposite over adjacent, or we can say sine and then opposite over hypotenuse, since we computed the hypotenuse now. But now, in order to find x, we're going to take the inverse tangent for both sides of the equation. So we're going to say inverse tangent of tangent x equals inverse tangent of 14 over 11. Now, these, I'm going to have x, the angle x is equal to the inverse tangent of 14 over 11. Again, make sure you are in degree mode. Your calculator is in degree mode. So we're going to go to mode, and we're going to scroll down and then to the right, and then click enter. So now the degree is blinking. We clear the screen, and we do second tangent of 14 divided by 11, close parentheses, and we get 51.84. So x is equal to 51.84 degrees. And now we have x, we can find y easily. We could say y is equal to 180 degrees minus 90 degrees minus 51.84 degrees, because we know the sum of the angles inside of a triangle is 180 degrees. So I'm going to say that, and I will get y is equal to 38.16 degrees. So I'm going to box all of the answers. Here is the first answer, and here is the second answer, and here is the last answer. So I have square root of 317, which is approximately 17.8 and then y is equal to 51.84 degrees, and then x, sorry, I reversed it. X is 51.84 degrees, and then y is 38.16 degrees. Number 11, use your calculator to evaluate inverse tangent of negative 0.65. And this has to be in radians. So again, you're going to go change the mode on your calculator to radians mode, plug this in. You're going to use inverse, you're going to say second and then tangent. Negative, this negative, basically use the button that has the negative between parentheses. Please don't use the minus. So this is approximately equal to, if you plug that into your calculator, it's going to be negative 0. I'm going to round to 2 decimals, so 58 radians. For question number 12, you will need to know the unit circle. So I'm just going to sketch the unit circle here just to make sure we are on the same page. So here is my unit circle, and you're going to find the answers using the unit circle. So 180 degrees is this line right here, and we know this point is -1 and 0, which means sine is 0. Sine 180 degrees is 0. That is the y coordinate of the point. Cosine 4 pi over 3. We know pi over 3 is right here, so this is pi over 3. 2 pi over 3 is right here, 2 pi over 3, and then 3 pi over 3 is exactly 180. It's pi, so this is 3 pi over 3, and then 4 pi over 3 is here, so this is 4 pi over 3. This point, if you recall, this is 1/2 and square root of 3 over 2. So in the fourth quadrant, in the third quadrant, both are going to be negative. So -1/2 and negative square root of 3 over 2, which means cosine 4 pi over 3 is -1/2. That is the cosine, so -1/2. Secant 11 pi over 6, we know that 11 pi over 6 is here. And if you look at the reference angle is basically pi over 6. So it is similar to pi over 6, which is here. But we have to make sure that we're working in the correct quadrant. So this is square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2, which means the x is still positive here, but the y value is negative. We need the secant. We know secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So it's the reciprocal of that number. So we're going to say it is 2 over square root of 3. Rationalize, we're going to multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3, which is 2 square root of 3 over 3. Cosecant 2 pi. 2 pi is basically here. This is 2 pi. We know this point is 1 and 0. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Sine is 0, which means the reciprocal of sine is 1 over 0, and this is undefined. Or we can say does not exist. Tangent 120. We know 120 is going to be in the second quadrant, right here. 120 in the second quadrant, I think it's right here. The reference angle is 60 degrees, so that means it is equivalent to pi over 3, but it is in the second quadrant, which means x is negative and y is positive. So it's equivalent to 60 degrees, which is this line right here. That is pi over 3. And in the second quadrant, which means sine is positive, cosine is negative. We need tangent 120. Tangent is sine over cosine, or you could say tangent is y over x. So this is x and y. We know tangent is y over x. So y over x, which is equal to square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. We know division turns into multiplication when it comes to fractions, and we multiply with the reciprocal of the second one. Now these will cancel. We have the square root of 3, and I forgot the negative sign here, so here is a negative sign. -1/2. So it is negative square root of 3. Sine negative 30, we learned that sine is odd, so the negative comes out, so this is equivalent to negative sine 30 degrees, which is equal to negative, and 30 degrees is right here, sine 30 degrees is 1/2, which means it's negative 1/2. Tangent pi over 5 minus cotangent 3 pi over 10. I noticed immediately that those are cofunctions. So unless I prove that the sum of the angles is going to be complementary, which means they complement one another, I cannot do anything about that. So I'm going to prove it right here. Let me check. Pi over 5 plus 3 pi over 10. So the sum of the angles, I don't care about this sign right here. I care about the angles. If I add the angles and they add up to pi over 2, that means those two angles are going to be complementary, which means the cotangents are equal. The cofunctions are equal. So now I'm going to have a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 2 both the denominator and the numerator of the first one. This will give me 2 pi over 5 plus 3 pi, over 10, plus 3 pi over 10 equals 5 pi over 10. If you reduce, you get pi over 2. So yep, those two angles are complement of one another, which means the cofunctions are the same. So tangent pi over 5 is in fact equal to cotangent 3 pi over 10, which means if you subtract them, the answer is going to be 0. Number 13, we need to compute the reference angle for the angle 210 and without using a calculator. So here you're not going to be allowed to use a calculator, just like the previous one. We did not need the calculator for that. So here we need to find the reference angle for 210. Notice how 210 is in the third quadrant, which means we need to compute this much of an angle. That is the reference angle. So if all of this is 210 degrees, then this little much is 210 minus 120. And 180 degrees, sorry. So 210 minus 180, that is 30 degrees. Okay, so we're working with the same angle, 30 degrees, and remember this is square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. In the third quadrant, both coordinates are going to be negative, so this is negative square root of 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. So the reference angle is 30 degrees. What is the quadrant of this angle? It is the third quadrant. So sine 210 is equal to negative 1/2, and cosine 210 is equal to negative square root of 3 over x. So this is basically the y, and this is the x. We know that sine is the y and cosine is the x. I will come back with another video for pages 6 and 7.